I do know this is that if you're a person that is pushing into the future, you will have naysayers. I actually think I often say to myself, when you get pushback, you're actually means you're most likely on the right path. And so anytime I get that negative comment or somebody's questioning what I'm doing, I'm like, I think I might be on the right path here, because, that means I've caused somebody to feel change. Something's different. If you're status quo, that means nothing's changing. But yeah, I do think some people are scared of AI, but the easiest way to not have AI be a problem is to embrace it. It's very simple.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐬, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Well, hello friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible, technical, and practical planning advice for anyone in the events industry. This podcast is sponsored by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned and operated boutique event production agency, and I am your host, Anka Platon Tree Fan. And welcome to our current season. We're still running with it, the Eventful AI, during which we are taking on demystifying the captivating world of AI as it applies to the event industry, exploring the practical applications, not just within the event industry, but also some of the ways we can apply it to our own branding, as we will be discussing today, our businesses as well. And with that, I got the chance to meet some phenomenal guests. And talking about phenomenal guests, I have the absolute pleasure to introduce to you our featured guest for today's episode, Brian Monahan. Brian is not just a recognized figure in the event technology industry, but also an acclaimed author, speaker, certified professional coach dedicated to helping others find success in business and in life. He's also the Vice President of Business Development for Prestige AV and Creative Services. His journey, interestingly enough, started in the United States Marines and led him to become an event technology ambassador, serving the industry with his unique blend of customer service, creative event production, and business acumen. With over 2 decades of experience in the audiovisual industry, Brian is recognized as a hospitality thought leader known for his ability to deliver impactful organizational outcomes. His work combines excellent customer service, creative event production, and exceptional business acumen, as I mentioned earlier. He also shares his insights at various industry conferences and events, and today he's here with us to share his knowledge. So during today's episode, what we're trying to demystify and understand better is how to leverage AI to manage our personal branding in order to stand out in business, in the event industry, and in general. With all of that, it is my pleasure to welcome our guest in. Welcome to the show, Brian. It's so awesome to have you join me. And with that, I just want to welcome you to the show. If you didn't know, actually, for a little while, Brian has coached me on this writing journey. And we're going to talk more about it as I'm in the process of writing a book. And happy to report I'm still at it. Just sometimes life and especially events get in the way. But before we get to all of that, let's start talking about you. Because as we want to dive into this world of Eventful AI, I would love to learn, more about your expertise in leveraging technology in our industry and event productions. And also, I'm kind of fascinating about your unique journey because you've been serving in the United States Marines, and then you became a VP of sales and business development, and you even authored a book. I mean, you just have done some things that normally people don't just do in AV productions, right? So I would love to hear share, if you would take a moment to share with our audience how you got where you are today. How did your time in the Marines influence your approach to the business? And how have you integrated your various talents and interests into your current role? I know this is a 3-part question, but let me break it to you. I love 3-part questions. So let's start with the beginning and just try to do your best answering this
I think that
3-part
was
very
like
long question.
I'm
Was
pretty sure
it?
that was like 7 parts, but
Oh my gosh.
I love talking about myself, so we should be fine here. You might need to cut me off here, but I'm actually very proud. A lot of people, start their careers in the military. I, like many other people, went in the military to help with education and help me pay for some college. Also to, just get out of the house at a young age. I didn't come from a poor family, but we were middle class and, there wasn't an easy path out. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go in the military and give this a whirl. And, by chance, I was DJing like many unskilled people in the industry. I didn't do any instruments or wasn't in a band, but I thought, well, what about media services as a job in the military? So I signed up for that and I ended up in literally audiovisual in the Marines. I ended up taking the audiovisual support course, and 30 years later, I'm still doing it. And much like pilots, maybe if I would have went that track, that would have been a little bit better path. But, a lot of people in the military
the severance, probably.
Yeah, I'd be retired now. But for those of us who weren't riflemen or combat infantry, who had other jobs, there's, a lot of people don't realize there's just regular jobs. The military is like a corporation. They need people to do accounting. They need people to do training. And so I ended up in the Training Audiovisual Support Center. And what that meant is at that time, dating me, we were checking out overhead projectors to drill instructors and flip charts, slide projectors, and right at the time that LCD...
What an exciting world, right?
Oh, I know. And, we were on call to solve problems out in the field with training. I would go out
you put the slide in the wrong slot.
Oh,
it's upside down.
Well, we did have a few training facilities that actually had slide to video projectors. And those were like, seriously, cutting edge to put a slide into a video monitor. But yeah, we
are talking about AI, Brian.
Oh, I know. Where have we come? So, that led me to my career. I didn't even know there was an event industry. I started out in the Marine Corps, just, the technology of their events. And on the way out, I had a warrant officer who was retiring at the same time I was getting out. And he goes, "Hey, have you ever heard of this industry?" And I'm like, "Oh, wow. I didn't even know there was a thing." So, I ended up applying at a number of AV companies and ended up landing in Cincinnati, in my hometown, and worked for a number of AV companies till I landed at Prestige and made a career of it. I personally have always been more passionate about the big picture of the event industry, what engagement means in a meeting, what the business background of the meeting is, how it financially impacts the organizations putting it on. So I kind of took a different little shift, and that's why I ended up in sales. So I'm much more interested in the dynamics of running a business and providing a great product to our clients. And so with that, I had this great idea. I wanted to try something else. And so I got certified as a professional coach, and, I was into personal development. So I took a little detour mid-career and started a little life and business coaching company. I'll be frank, it was tough. I did it right around 2008, not the best time to be starting a new company. But so I made my way back into the event industry, but that training and coaching and mentoring really propelled my career at Prestige. I came back in a sales role and quickly started producing, gaining new clients, taking on new opportunities. And, it's just really propelled my career significantly. And that led me to today. Back in 2016, I decided to write a book on customer service. And I did it because I always wanted to write a book. And so I sat down and did this whole model of writing a book and just fell in love with the concept of writing. And so on the side now, I do coaching, as you mentioned, helping people get their first book off the ground. And as you mentioned too, it's hard to write a book and have a career and have multiple things. And that is really what the hard part of a book is. It's not actually writing it, it's fitting it into your life. And so on the side, I've been finding ways, and in the middle of all that, AI, presents us to today. And there's a lot of great opportunities in the event industry, build our personal brands, to help facilitate how our events are delivered and experience of our clients. So I'm super excited to be talking about AI. I personally love it. I use it regularly. Am I an expert? No. Am I getting there? Yes. So did I hit all 3 points?
Yes, you were right on point. And
All
you're
right.
right. anybody that wanted to write a book would just do it because it's so easy, we would have volumes upon volumes
Yeah.
of books. There is a quote that obviously I'm going to butcher because I'm really good at that. Says something along the lines of how there is like a cemetery of unwritten books,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Somewhere, somehow, and manuscripts that never actually made the shelf, right? So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. We'll talk more about how, like you mentioned, AI could help with maybe the idea or the brainstorming part of that, because we trying to follow this routine
Well,
of like
no,
start with the top and go to the bottom. I'm gonna go back to my flow. And now that we got to know you, Brian, I would love to then just dive into what we were going to talk about. And you mentioned branding, and personal branding is something that you've worked at for quite a few years, because as you mentioned, you started a career path, but then also you wanted to elevate your personal brand and see what happened. So I'm curious where you started with that. Why was that important to you at one point in your life? And then how, now taking it to today's times, how is AI helping you elevate that even more?
Yeah, I think what really sparked me is actually when I started going down the sales track in the industry. So I didn't start out as vice president of sales for Prestige. I started out as account executive or an on-site director of audiovisual services. And for those that are in the industry, that's a really great role to become really good at corporate type environment. You're in the field delivering AV, but you're also running essentially a small business on behalf of your AV company alongside the hotel or the facility you're working with. And so I quickly learned that in sales, you have to stand out. You have to have something different about you, unique. And so how do I differentiate myself from the competition? And so I also believe people do business with people. And so that's where the personal part comes about. Yes, Prestige, my employer, has a great brand. They spend a lot of money promoting themselves in many different ways. And I also needed to promote myself within their brand. And so that I made it just a major part of my approach. If I were to say what's the biggest impact on my career in the way of building my personal brand, it's speaking at events. That is the absolute number one way to grow your personal brand. And I equate it to this. If you go to a networking event and you're a salesperson or you're trying to find leads, you're one person and you can shake how many hands in an hour? Maybe 10 effectively, maybe even just 5. Okay, it's not about quantity over quality. But if you're speaking at an event, you get to meet everybody. They get to meet you. Besides that, you're probably getting marketed on their behalf to their network. And so you live on their website forever. That's part of what we're doing here with your podcast too. It just builds additional breadth of awareness of who you are. So I just really
you build
embrace
not just authority, but also trust, right? It's like, somebody that actually know what they're talking about. And there's a term which stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust, AT. And that sells more than, like you said, how many Google ads you're going to buy.
And I think I love the word trust. I think that's the underpinning of everything you're doing with a personal brand is you're trying to excel, not necessarily trying to accelerate, but you're actually elevating your trust factor with a potential customer, somebody that, like a circle of influence, so to speak, the people in your network. Not everybody that you're networking with is a potential customer, but they may be the person that leads you to a potential customer or other opportunities. Like a scenario for me is I built a relationship with somebody through the MPI Potomac chapter, and later on, she was involved in a project and was able to invite me to be able to teach some courses on audiovisual. That's a relationship I built 10 years ago that paid off today. And so it's not a short project. It's a career-long project.
So how has AI recently maybe enhanced the work that you've already done over the years, right, to build this personal and business brand that you are proud of because it represents you, who you are as a person, who you are as a professional?
The minute ChatGPT came out, I was sold. I mean, it was game changing for me personally. The reason is this, yes, I work for a mid-size organization. We have resources, but still my personal branding and some of the projects I'm doing, I'm not going to be able to hire editors and people to go through my work at the pace that I want to create ideas and content. And so it just accelerates my ability to put things out to the world or to write a letter or write a concept. I say that ChatGPT or AI is not a replacement for your ideas. It's an enhancer of your ideas. And so I go and I write a marketing piece, or I'll write a business letter, and I run it through ChatGPT to clean it up. And sometimes it kicks out better ideas. And so it's like having a private copywriter on your behalf to help you ideate quicker and faster. And so it's allowed me a lot of ability to move quicker than I ever could in the past.
Absolutely. Now, as you've touched, on how AI has helped and enhance, and I love that idea of like enhance, right? Because it doesn't replace you. It doesn't replace your idea. It doesn't replace your creativity, but it will enhance maybe the speed at which you come up with new ideas. Just earlier today, I was actually running a bit of a SEO analysis on my website, and I'm getting all this traffic, but for some reason, I'm not seeing the conversions that I want to see. So I'm diving into, analytics and running it by ChatGPT. Teach me, what do I not see? Because I'm not an SEO marketer expert, right? And one of the things that then I'm thinking about asking ChatGPT is, if you're a panicking customer in my niche, right, in our niche, what would be some of the things that you would be searching for on Google? And it was amazing to see that it came with 15 ideas that I didn't even think about it, right? Because sometimes I feel like in our own branding, in our own niche, we can sort of get so microscopic on the things that we care about, but we forget the big picture. We forget the problems that people might run into that are so high level that I would never run into that problem, because it's way beyond my years of experience in this industry to even think that would be a problem, right? But this is the level of some of people that are struggling with trying to figure out, how not to crash, I don't know, a virtual event, or how can I hire an AV production company really fast, last minute things like that, right? And those are the things that I'm that's actually really helpful information. So I know now when I want to maybe write a new blog piece, what should I be focusing on? Because again, I am thinking expert level, but there's so many people that are just intro level, and I don't always see the problem at that level anymore, right?
No, I mean, it's infinite opportunity to expand your ideas. And so I think, yes, we are insulated to what we see on a regular basis. Not that we're negligent in that, as we can only be exposed to what we're exposed to. And ChatGPT's got the entire breadth of the internet, so to speak, as its reference point. And it's been designed in a way that can access it in a way that makes sense to us. It definitely's got holes in it. On that note, my first use my proof of concept, which sold me on ChatGPT, my second prompt was, please write a training on how to set up pipe and drape. And I thought that was honestly. And when it came back with the correct training, because how does ChatGPT know what?
Gotta know, right?
Is? And is it really going to get it right? And I'm I'm sold.
So you're creating processes, and you're just okay, here's your manual.
Well, and too, you think you can tell everybody something, and then they get to this event site and they're like, well, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you can't be enough. So that is actually one of the uses I use, is I write little mini trainings, and usually I'm prompting it with more information, but that time I'm just test it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Please write a training on pipe and drape, everybody, and see what it comes back with.
So because it's actually a pre-trained model, that means somebody somewhere somehow might have already contributed this information.
Oh, I know. It's mind-boggling for me. So
that's funny. So I remember when we transitioned, again, now we're dating ourselves, but we transitioned from the drop-down screens to the fast-full screens. And I was in the position, I was working for another production company at the time, and I was an account manager, and I was training people on site. So I was in the position to actually write, like you said, a manual how to set up this fast full screen. And I remember the pain of going through the steps, because you can miss a step, right? Because then you get a tech that hasn't done it before, and they will skip that step. They wouldn't have any common sense to know, oh, wait, you are supposed to be using this third knob to, the legs fold, and make sure that you do attach it to the frame.
And the red knob, well, this one's black.
Right. And the
Okay.
height. And if you're going to do it, at this height, make sure that the other one is at the same height, because otherwise you're going to have like this unlevel screen. So anyway, I love that idea. Actually, I haven't thought about it. So I'm stealing that for next time when I need
Oh,
to create some type
absolutely.
of a process. So now that we're coming back to the branding part, like how
Mm.
can someone effectively stand out in this fast-paced and dynamic event world? Like how are you standing out using the tools that you have at hand? And then from there, from a personal example, maybe give it like a general like example for anyone that's an event professional that is trying to figure out, okay, there's all these AI tools. I don't know what to do with them, but how can you use it as a strategic partner to create this, distinctive personal brand in an industry where, the reality is innovation is key.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually just going to give you a simple process that I take, which is both a productivity process and it leads to an output, which is, I have drive time. I got to drive to the office. I'm not fully virtual like many AV or people. We have to actually show up at our, we have a warehouse and we're pushing equipment out. So during my drive, I actually will open up 𝐂𝐻𝐻𝐸 and I will start, for those who don't know, 𝐂𝐻𝐻 is a transcription service. So I will start speaking and it'll start gathering my text. So I might riff on an idea like, hey, I want to do a podcast on how to use ChatGPT more effectively. Some of the ways I would go about that is X, X, and X. And I'll riff that. At the time when I started this, 𝐂𝐻𝐻𝐸 was not transcribing and doing any kind of additional work. They were just giving you a transcript. But now they actually will summarize it, give you keywords back. But then after you're done with that, then you take it and run it through ChatGPT. Please condense my transcript from my discussion about how to use ChatGPT better into 3-paragraph article that I can post to LinkedIn to establish a process on how to use ChatGPT. And then has that run that through. And then you go back. And here's the thing about AI. Don't ever take AI for what it gives you. You need to go back, you add your flavor to it. So then I go back into it and I read what it's brought back to me, which is, by the way, it's my original thoughts that have been transcribed. They've been reduced an outline, and then I've run it through another time. And then I've actually gone through and then done a final edit and made it make sense for my target audience. And then that's going to be pushed out through LinkedIn. That might be a newsletter article, could possibly be something like a description for a presentation I'm doing. And so it's just all about cutting down your time in creating things without having to sit down and write an entire article from scratch.
I love that idea. Actually, I use to send those type of notes to myself, just recording myself on the phone the same way like you, like maybe in traffic, maybe just, I know, on a walk. I get my best ideas, right? And here comes an idea that I'm like, this would be great for a LinkedIn article or LinkedIn post, whatever. And I am the worst to actually plan my content because my ideas come like that. Like literally, like I can't just sit down and be like, let me think of 10 content ideas for this week so I can, no, they just come like this. And then I put it in my phone so I don't forget it, especially if I'm in the middle of something where I can't really just sit down and write it. And then from that original idea, I enhance it with either using ChatGPT to evolve, kind of generate more whatever thoughts into that, or I would write it and then I run it to ChatGPT to get it more concise, because I either like have to have it more developed or I have to condense it because I have way too many words and I'm like, okay, yeah, nobody's going to read that.
No.
So I love that process because it gives everyone that's listening right now and is kind of, not sure how to use it in context of keeping your original content original. That's a great example of how to do that.
Yeah, I think you're starting with an original idea. You're leaning on the tool. It's coming back to you. You're giving further input and you're giving the tool guidance. And then you're coming back to it and you're finalizing the idea. I actually equate AI and ChatGPT to a calculator for words. I'm old enough to know that there was a day when calculator in a classroom would have got you expelled. Now it's on. I just bought a $139 calculator for my daughter, and I didn't know that that was still a thing, to be quite honest. But no, so it's on the list of things that she's supposed to bring to school. And I think 25 years ago, that would have been cheating. Now, I think the same, in 25 years, you're going to say AI is a tool for calculating words to get the outcome you're looking for. And so I just think it's so new that people are afraid of it and don't understand how to harness it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with what you just said. And it's an example that if you go back in the history of, every new thing, new shiny thing was some type of a reason for fear for a lot of
Yep.
people. And it goes all the way back into 1600s, 1800s. So AI is just another way. I feel like as we get used to it, it's just going to become the norm. And I don't know how, in which ways. I can only imagine it's going to shape the way we do business and live our lives. But one thing is for sure, we're still exploring it. We're still finding out what it can do and where we're at. It's a strategic ally, and a tool that really helps to change or enhance, like as we mentioned, I love the word, and give you a new nuance of looking at things, or maybe turning your content that you're creating originally in ways that you didn't even think about, to spin it. So with all of that being said, I want to come back to the personal development and personal story that creates your overall journey. Do you have one maybe particular event, decision, or person that in your journey has significantly shaped or impacted your career in one way or another? And a spin-off of that question, piggybacking on that, because of course we have to have the multi-question questions. How did this one moment or person or decision influence and guide you to leverage technology, production tools in ways that you could say they could be transformative in one way or another?
Yeah, I think the person who inspired me most in my career that made the biggest impact is actually a sales trainer. His name is Jeffrey Gitomer. And I got the opportunity to build a great friendship with him because he was doing a conference. I was running the Hilton Netherland Plaza in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was coming in doing a public seminar, and I enjoyed his books, but I have never met him. And because of that, I got a chance to meet him and build a relationship with him. But in his public seminar, that particular one that he did that we worked, he presented this concept. And it was this. And he said, "My name's Jeffrey Gitomer, and I deliver value first." And it was just like a light bulb went off for me. And it just changed my approach to life. I was like, if I can show up with value first, I will always win. And what better way to win is to actually be giving something back to other people. And so it just set me on a path. I try to show up with something in hand, with an idea, a concept, whatever that might be. And it's just served me well. I say it's a long career. I mean, it's not about quid pro quo. It's not about bribing people, but it's good karma to take care of people, and people take care of me. And that's been the biggest difference for me. And that's led me to having new ideas and being on the forefront. One thing you talk about personal brand, I just want to bring this up. I have a personal mantra as well called be the trend. And what that means for me is that anytime there's a new product, service, I want to be on the front side of the adoption curve. I don't know if it's ever going to last, but I want to be the person trying it out. And I want to have the habit of being a person who tries new things. And so that's why when AI comes out, what is this? Well, I need to just do it, and I'll figure it out later. Take that all the way back. I think Jeffrey just set me on the right path. What's interesting is actually I'm going to be doing my own podcast here shortly, and his wife is going to be one of my guests on the show, and then he will be on a future show as well. So, I mean, it's been about 20 years since I first met him, and it's still somebody that impacts my life in a big way.
And I feel like you just touched on something super important. Like, in order to have such a long longevity in a career in an industry, staying at the forefront of, technology, what's new, what's up and coming, it's so important, and it is what keeps you in the business and keeps you coming up with new, fresh ideas and ways of bringing value and adding value to the conversation or whatever place you're put in. So as we delve into this unique blend of a background that you have, from your Marines experience to customer service to putting all the knowledge into a book that you mentioned earlier, how has all of that led you to think differently about AI and its application? Because for some, adopting something as new as AI could be, problematic. Could be something like, oh, what is this thing? Like I remember just recently I posted something on LinkedIn about how my Facebook page got bashed by some random people that I am promoting AI in events and in business. Like it's some kind of a illegal thing to do. And like fear mongers out there, like just coming after me. I mean, it was drama for a while. And I'm like, I don't understand this mindset.
I think you're talking about a couple different things in that comment. But, one thing is is, I do know this, is that if you're a person that is pushing into the future, you will have naysayers. I often say to myself, when you get pushback, you're actually means you're most likely on the right path. And so anytime I get that negative comment or somebody's questioning what I'm doing, I'm like, I think I might be on the right path here, because, that means I've caused somebody to feel change. Something's different. If you're status quo, that means nothing's changing. And so it's just an example of people. It might just be the platform, it might be the environment. But yeah, I do think some people are scared of AI. But the easiest way to not have AI be a problem is to embrace it. It's very simple.
Yeah, I was making a point how AI won't just replace you, whatever you are doing or where you are, but a person using AI might.
Yeah. No, have you had an opportunity to mess with Sparkit.ai, the event-based one? I wasn't sure what that was going to look like, but it's got a good idea concept. It's like it's doing AI for the event industry. It's saying, I need a description for this session. I need a long form bio. I need an overall event description. And so what's going to happen is you may not need 3 administrators for that event. You just need 1, but you are going to need somebody that understands how to run that tool. It's kind of like somebody who could type 30 years ago or 40 years ago, whatever it was, and somebody who can use a computer. It's going to be a new job. Jobs are not going to go away. It's just going to be different jobs. And so how do you be a part of the different job of the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you have any potential examples where maybe being seen as different or being perceived as different just because you might have shared some strategies and perspectives that were avant-garde for some of the people around you?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any firm examples. I mean, I do, as you go back and say, as somebody who's always pushing the limits, always trying to be in the future, to try new things, to, just the act of building a personal brand is putting yourself out in front of people to be judged or to be.
Right.
And so, yes, there are times, I have coworkers over the years that maybe don't understand what I'm doing. In fact, during the pandemic, I figured it out. What was going on is that a lot of our team didn't know me for who I was because I was out presenting to meeting and event planners at conferences. They didn't have an opportunity to see what I do for a job. And so when we went online and they didn't know what it was, they were like, what's Brian doing? He's doing interviews online. He's doing this. It's like, we need to book business right now. And I'm like, that's what we're doing.
Right.
So,
we're building the business just from a different side. Exactly.
And these are the conversations I have with meeting and event planners when I'm at a conference. But being a person who's running audio or video for me, they don't have that context, and they don't necessarily have to have that context. But it was an eye-opening experience for me to say, these people really don't know what I do, and I need to educate our team better of what sales looks like, what personal branding looks like. It is all part of our product. And so, yeah, it was definitely a challenge for a period of time.
For sure. Well, we're going to come back to this conversation. We're going to take just a quick, brief pause. It's a pause like this that allows us to appreciate the support that makes conversations like this possible. So don't go anywhere. Maybe just grab a quick drink or something, but be right back. We will return and we'll continue talking to Brian and hearing his thoughts on leveraging AI for personal branding and event management. So don't go. We'll be right back. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifan Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifanevents.com. Welcome back, friends. If you're just joining us, we have Brian Monahan, VP of Sales and Business Development at Prestige AV and Creative Services, live event industry relationship builder. Do you like that title? That's pretty
I
good,
love it.
right?
Yeah. Did you go to ChatGPT during the break?
I did. I totally did. So before we took this brief break, we were talking about how your entire journey has sort of like set you up on this path of customer service success where you develop your sales skills and you even basically wrote a book and became an author, which has elevated your personal and professional branding. Now, as an industry coach and mentor, how do you advise others on effective ways to use the tools at hand, AI or not, in building personal branding?
Yeah, I think one of the big mistakes that people are making now is, just relying too much on their company brand only. I think it's important to have your own take. As we mentioned earlier, people do business with people. And so, yes, you work under a brand, you should represent that brand well, but you too have a brand and you have to get creative and weave that in and make sure that you represent yourself because, yes, it is a career. It's not a destination. And so the pandemic's a great example. I hate to use that word. We're trying to move on, but a lot of people had to take shifts. They needed to make, hey, I was with a company for 20 years and I thought I was going to be here for another 10 till I could retire. Well, that company went belly up or reorganized. And so it's imperative that you have a backup plan for yourself. And I think a personal brand's a great way to do that because you are in business for yourself, even if you're working for somebody else. You've basically signed a contract with them and they're going to pay you a certain amount of money for the services rendered. And so you've sold them on an entire salary for the year, and you may need to do that again in the future. And so I highly encourage people to think for the future. I also think there's a much greater opportunity with the digital world that people have side hustles and it's much more common. People have other interests. And, I think we're going to talk about balance and things like that later. And I think it's important that we're always engaging with the things that bring us joy and passion. And we need to find a balance. Either we find it in our day job or we have to find it during our free time. And so ideally you can find it in both places. That's the best path. But, I think you just need a nice balance of those things to have a complete life that brings you joy and a robust experience.
I couldn't agree more. Now, let's unpack a little bit that because I remember I was in a season in my life where I was actually working for another production company. And unbeknownst to me, I was building my personal brand, but not intentionally, just because, like you said, I needed another outlet to let my creativity, my ideas, my other thoughts than work-related thoughts to come to the surface. And as I was doing that, I started building this personal brand for myself. And then I realized that I have a following now and people are looking up to me. And then when we parted ways with this production company that I was working with at the time, a lot of the clients that I built and I brought to this company came with me. And I'm like, what am I going to do with all these clients? I didn't have a company. I didn't think that I wanted to start a company, but then I was at this place where I had a brand and people were trusting the brand, were trusting the person behind the brand. And that was sort of like my aha moment. I'm like, I should have a company. Like, what am I doing? I should have a company. So I'm starting my company. I have the clients and I'm building this business now. And all of that started with this. Again, it wasn't like this major plan that I had for myself at the time. But like you mentioned, like I had a need for a place or an outlet for creativity. And the truth is, in a lot of our jobs, our careers, there isn't always creativity is not something that is appreciated or it's not something that you're going to get paid for unless you're like a marketer or maybe that's your job title, right? But like in AV productions, you're paid to run sound or run, I don't know, be the video switcher or the lighting operator. But a lot of the thought process, behind all of that, it's not like somebody's going to come and ask you, so how do you feel about process behind this operation, right? So I love that you touch on that because I feel like for a lot of people, they're maybe safe, where they are and they feel like they are safe, but the blanket from under you could always be pulled away, like you just mentioned in the example with the pandemic, which we don't want to mention again, but
no more.
Right? For me, like an aha moment, the opportunity to realize that I built a foundation even though it wasn't necessarily intentional. And that foundation is what actually carried me through that time, so that I build even further onto that. And I'm at the point where, I'm like, okay, so that was fun and I loved it. I feel like now there's other avenues that come out of me that I'm like, I want to actually explore other directions, but I have the freedom to do so.
Yep.
Because it's my own branding. I don't depend upon somebody else's to say, well, that's so far away from this. Like, we're going to confuse our customers, like if you go in this direction. Well, guess what? This is me. It's part of me. Like, I might be into bodybuilding and might also be into audiovisual productions. Two different things.
I'm going to have to remember that next time somebody's like, what are you? You're a book writing coach and you're an audiovisual. And I'll say, Anka's a bodybuilder and an audiovisual. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's like that. So, I mean, I don't have anything to worry about.
Apparently I'm used as an example in other people's presentations. Somebody literally called me and said, hey, I am giving this speech in front of this audiovisual production guys. Can I use your picture from your podcast with my bodybuilding picture with the swords, to make a point how you could be in this field and yet you can still put wellness and fitness at a high priority. And I was like, I'm like, should I charge for that?
You love it. Don't kid yourself. I know you love it.
I might have been a little bit, but like, okay, fine, if you must.
Would you like me to send you a Dropbox link with additional?
Exactly. I have a few other poses. Would you like those too? But it was just hilarious because I feel like sometimes they try to put you in this box and then you don't fit in that box. Like you want to break the box. You don't want to be contained within whatever the square that they think in their mind that you should be. And that is to me the idea of this AV professional that only does AV. And I always kind of rebelled against that idea. Of all the things, first off, I don't fit that persona of an AV guy, right? Like I've talked about it many times before on the podcast and in different blogs and posts, how you can still be yourself within the industry that you're in, as long as you're authentically yourself and you bring to the table, the passion for your work. But also that also means that you could be passionate about other things. I don't know, airplanes, flying, paper airplanes or something.
Jets.
I don't know, anything.
Helicopters.
So I love the idea that you decided, okay, I'm not just an AV production professional. I'm an author. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. And who knows what's next? I mean, come on, let's talk about what's next.
ChatGPT, what's next for Brian Monahan? He's an author, he's a coach, he's an AV professional. Somebody run that prompt for us. So,
coming back to the questions, what has been maybe one of the most challenging or maybe rewarding aspects of this evolution that you started from like AV to sales to customer service, book author to now a coach and a mentor?
To be frank, the hardest part has been, I have started a couple coaching businesses over the year, and this is just me being transparent, and they didn't financially pay off the way I wanted to. And so there was a point where I was disappointed to come back to the career, I'd taken that leap, I'd moved on, but it just didn't work out. And so I had to retool and come up with a new idea. And so round 2, when I did that, I got into sales and I started doing presentations, and that started to fulfill me. Hey, I get an opportunity to go out and have a creative outlet within the realm of an audiovisual career. And I took another stab at it and I miscalculated. The great news is it's actually a joke at Prestige. There's 3 of us now that have been employed by Prestige 3 times. And I say we give people...
get rid of you.
Yeah. And so I'm the president of the 3X Club. My good buddy Tony is the vice president. And then we just hired somebody back this week. And I said, well, you're going to have to give yourself a title of 3X Club. But
that's funny.
So he took chairman. So what I've done is I just always try to integrate what brings me joy into what I'm doing. And so it's not always pretty. It's not always perfect. I try to communicate. I do work for a great owner who I have access to, and we have regular meetings. And, he knows at the end of the day who I am and what brings me joy. And he also has a business to run, and he needs an audiovisual sales professional to help run that side of the business. And as long as I can deliver value in that, he gives me a lot of freedom to do the other things I like to do. And so at the end of the day, I think when you're delivering value, being highly transparent, being a great communicator, you can do a lot more in life than being sour and negative. And, sometimes you just have to take a chance and sit down with somebody and say, be honest, like, hey, this is what brings me joy. This is what brings you dollars, and let's find some place in the middle that works out, and let's all be frank about it. And so that's where we're at. He knows what brings me joy, and, AV brings me joy. It's not, I really do. I love the business. I actually disagree with you on the aspect of creativity. I often think that the best part about our industry is that you get to be creative in every aspect, down to how am I going to get that piece of equipment from Cincinnati to Las Vegas by the next 12 hours. Well, I'm going to run over to Delta and put on Delta Cargo. I'm going to ship it there, and I'm going to act like it was all what we always planned anyway.
I think what I was saying is that creativity is part of our jobs regardless, even if your job title is logistical manager. Like you said, you have to use your creativity to solve problems. And some of those problems are day in, day out logistical issues, right? It's like, okay, like you gave the example. So I'm right there with you. It's just creativity as a trait is not necessarily, I guess, awarded as much as it should be.
No, it's hard to separate it, because what you have is the outcome, and somebody was like, oh, that just got there, or that just worked. And you're like, no, there was 10 things that happened between here and there that actually solved that problem. It was not obvious to you, but that's always what I say. What's the glory of having professionals on the job is what I can do in a couple minutes that you have no idea might take you hours, or if not be able to ever do it. That is why we have an industry, because what you and I can fix on the fly, you and I got on our podcast today and I'm messing around with my microphone, and I'm totally comfortable with having a microphone not work a minute before a podcast, because I do AV every day, so.
Because you can go through the list and you know what you need to check on in order to get that thing working. Absolutely.
And why wasn't it working? I didn't have it plugged in. The number one easiest solution. But I just moved, so you are the very first podcast in my new basement home office.
I feel honored.
You are.
Even that background is fantastic. Like, should we show behind the curtain?
Oh, we might as well. This is the real deal here,
That's not virtual, guys. This is what Brian's life looks like in this season. I love it. Well, I appreciate the fact that you actually made time to have this conversation. So as we're about to wrap here, you alluded to balance, and we're going to shift gears a little bit and focus on something that's always on our minds here on the podcast, the well-being of event professionals and business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, as a busy event professional as yourself, and you mentioned before we started recording how you've been traveling and been all over the place, and it's just sort of like the way of the industry. Like, I just came from a week-long business trip in the middle of the country, and I'm getting back into the swing of things, but like my emails are still to be caught up with, and it's a lot, right? So there's definitely a demanding nature to our business that if you're in the event industry, you understand. Like, you don't have to be explained because you're in it, you know it, you live it. So how do you maintain your mental and physical well-being in a way that, like you said, joy is still part of what you do, and burnout, you kind of keep it at bay as much as you can?
No, I think it's imperative for us. Our industry is tough. It's challenging, and it doesn't lend well to balance in general. So, I think I know you face this on regular, when you're on show site, it's hard to be balanced. It's almost impossible. So you have to have good housekeeping skills for your health, and when you're not in the show, and at a greater level than a normal job might be, because our schedules are different. We work weekends, we work nights, we work 25-hour days. And for me, prior to my recent move, we've been in a 90-day process of moving homes, and I have had an interruption in my fitness. But my favorite type of fitness is like a fitness boot camp. And the reason why is there's a certain amount of accountability and social aspect to it, and that usually keeps me coming. So I think if you can add a social aspect into what you're doing, or an accountability aspect, it goes a long way to helping you stay on path. So, hey, I've been out of town for 10 days, but the people at my boot camp are like, where you been? They're ready for me to come back. And a really good boot camp or fitness place will send you a note and say, we haven't seen you in 10 days, Brian. Where are you? So,
yeah.
but that's something I'm actually working on is, I moved into a new neighborhood, so I need to reestablish some new patterns. But on the mental health side of things, I have been able to maintain that for me. And what that is when I am at the office, I've been trying to take more defined lunches instead of sitting at my desk. I try to get up, get away. We have a thrift shop across the street from our offices, and I like to thrift shop. So I will purposely go over there for 30 minutes and browse and just get out of the building and get a different environment.
Walk.
Which hence why I have so many boxes. What I need to do is go thrift shopping at my own house and donate it at the new place.
That is the hardest thing, especially, but I feel like moving is an opportunity to do just that, to go through all the things and like, man, I haven't touched on this like in forever. Do I really need it?
Yeah, I'm worried about the extra bill I'm going to get from the waste removal right now because we're loading it up every week. We did actually downsize too. So we went from like a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, and hence I lost my office. But yeah, it's
a process.
But through that, I have remained true to staying focused. And also you have a family as well. And I think it's imperative to make family time and maintain those relationships. And like this morning, my daughter ran off to stay away camp with her schoolmates. And although I wasn't driving her out there, I waited until she left this morning before I went into the office. Because I felt, it's like, I don't need to rush off to the office. So be here. It's a big day to be able to have that connection with her. And I think when you can stay rooted in those valuable things like your family and your friends, it goes a long way for your mental health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for being so generous with your insights and sharing your knowledge. Now, for anyone that's listening right now, how can they connect with you? And we'll have some of those places in the episode notes as well.
Yeah, so if you're looking for an event, 𝐂𝐚𝐻 is not your person for a live event. Obviously, you can hit me at prestigeav.com, or maybe we can partner with 𝐂𝐚𝐻 on an event in the future. But in terms of if you're looking to get into some of the other things I'm doing, I have a website, brianmonahan.me, or I actually have a newsletter for aspiring authors called The Right Time. And you can find that at signup.brianmonahan.me. And, just jump in there. It's free. It's got great advice. I always say, even if you're not writing a book, you're writing a profile, you're writing a LinkedIn post, you're writing something. We all need writing help. And so my goal is to help people become better writers and better communicators.
I love it. Well, fantastic. And that pretty much wraps our conversation up. For anyone that has been tuning in all the way till the end, thank you. This was a great conversation on leveraging AI for personal branding and event management, but also, Brian talking from his experience of what his journey led him to do and become so far. We'll see what's in stores next. Thank you so much, Brian, for this time. I feel like we definitely have gained quite a bit of insight on how to use the AI tools at hand. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on future podcast episodes featuring more brilliant minds from the event industry. And until next time, keep innovating, keep crafting unforgettable event experiences that leave a lasting legacy, and keep staying eventful. This is your host, 𝐂𝐚𝐻 Platon signing off. Bye, Brian. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.